Hello everybody, welcome to the Gruppetto. This week it's all about the classics, the start of 6 weeks of something new, one-day racing, the here and the now, and backed by some of the best fans on the planet. The arrival of the opening weekend provided a comforting, familiar feeling. The Omloop Het Nieuwsblad is often one of the most unpredictable races of the year, with no waiting until any next stage. At this time of the calendar, it's all decided on the day. UAE decided to test the waters as soon as we saw the first live pictures. No move went clear on the Lange Munter, however, and the 7 solid riders in the day's breakaway continued to enjoy a decent advantage. One by one, the 11 hills and further 8 cobbled sectors were approached and passed without too much drama. The Molenberg is often a key point, and before the bunch arrived, Josh Tarling was already out of the way of the chaos, having attacked beforehand. A split over the top saw Alpecin de Koning in a superb position, and Wout van Aert having to think about chasing back on. Arnaud Delis was also left trailing. He was paying for several mechanical and positioning setbacks earlier on. On the way to the Muur, things came back together, and the breakaway was eventually brought back. But that was only a temporary pause in the action. Once again, the intensity would wind up, with the glorious sight of the chapel, fans and fight up one of the most famous cobbled hills in the world. Stefan Küng was then away after a post-Bosberg cessation of hostilities. Would this finally be the day that he became a cobbled classics king? The answer was a cruel no. The Swiss was caught just over a kilometre from the line in Ninove, where the biggest bunch sprint in years at this race then ensued.
Philipsen's there, Philipsen's going to hit the front, on the left-hand side, it's a victory for Uno-X.
Despite the presence of Philipsen, Van Aert and more, Søren Varenshoel was there to take his and his whole team's biggest ever win. A real strongman sprint, catapulting the Norwegian to glory. An honourable mention here for Paul Magnier as well. At 20 years of age, the Soudal-QuickStep rider became the youngest to step on the Omloop podium since a certain Eddy Merckx back in 1966. He didn't do too badly in his career, did he? Later the same day, politics seemed to dominate a women's race that also gave pro cycling a brand new race winner. The early breakaway was wildly underestimated, and once the camera started rolling, the group up the road were enjoying an advantage that amounted to almost a quarter of an hour. The 5 continued to ride on, while behind it seemed like some teams were content not to win, as long as their biggest rivals didn't either. A strange old situation, but one that has perhaps been brewing since favourite Demi Vollering left SD Worx Pro Time over the winter to join FDJ Suez. As the kilometres ticked by, the lack of an organised pursuit, the standoff and tactical squabbling made sure that the 5-rider breaks gap was on its way to becoming insurmountable. After the Muur, Orella Nerlo and Lotte Klaas were left to fight out the win. Nerlo launched her sprint mightily early, and for a moment you wondered whether it had broken her opponent. But Klaas fought back, made it into the slipstream and secured her first ever win. Delight, a life changed in an instant, a Flemish hero forevermore. Behind, Vollering had attacked on the Muur and secured a 3rd place, just in front of Puk Pieterse. Lorena Wiebes won the sprint from the bunch behind, but that was only good enough for 5th. So, as Klaas teammates emotionally celebrated her first ever win, the inquest as to how it had been allowed to happen began. Were SD Worx Pro Time happy to lose to stop their former rider winning? Should FDJ Suez have committed more resources? Are we just stirring the pot, or did the past really influence the present? So many questions. So let's get some answers from those involved, shall we? SD Worx DS Danny Stam and his former rider, Vollering.
I mean, nobody takes the responsibility to close the gap, and then the gap gets 14 minutes, and then it's getting difficult to close it.
And did you consult the riders on the road to try and communicate with any other teams from your perspective? Did you feel it was your responsibility, or was there any effort to combine with other squads?
No, not really for us. I mean, we know that Lorena is fast, but we also know that that it's difficult to follow the Demis on the muur from Gerardsbergen. So yeah, that's for us something. If we take the initiative and we get dropped anyway, then it makes no sense.
So where do you think the responsibility lay today? Was it just an unusual racing incident, or is it more politics?
I don't know. I don't think it is politics. I mean, the team's getting stronger and stronger. So I think everybody needs to find his place back in the peloton and feels where he needs to take his responsibility. Yes or no.
And do you think this is going to maybe set the tone for the future classics? Do you think teams will look at what happened today and think we need to race a little bit differently? Maybe not let the break get so much distance?
Well, I don't know. I mean, like every race is different, and you could feel today that everybody was looking to each other. But I think next week we will have a different race and a more open race again.
In the first race of the season, nobody dares to chase us first, because then the whole season everybody thinks you can start us first again. So I think everybody was a bit scared to start us first. But yeah, I was a bit surprised, because at one point we are riding, Fu gets in the front, and I said to the girls, maybe we stop a bit, because some other teams have still a lot of riders here with sprinters, so it's actually not up to us. And then you see, we make it hard on the muur, and they still have a lot of riders there, and then they chase, and then we have still nothing. So I think it's not up to us. So I think as a team we can be very proud, because we did a really good job, and everywhere where we wanted to make it hard we did. On the muur, Juliette and Elise brought me perfect position, and before already Amber and Loes, they did perfect job. So, and we were only with 5 today, so I think I'm very proud.
Now, what do you make of all of that? Is this going to be a rivalry that defines the whole spring? Could things have been different? And if so, what went wrong? Let us know in the comments section below this video. There was less drama the day after, as 7 was again the magic number in the breakaway for the men at Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. Attacks from Jonathan Narvaez and then Wout van Aert were just 2 of the many moves that try to detonate a race that often sees action from far out in an attempt to distance the stronger sprinters. In the final 35 kilometres, Dries de Bont gave it a go and was joined by a couple of other riders, including Tim Wellens. Despite their hard work, they were caught with a lap to go, and a bunch sprint was on the cards. Once that arrived, Jasper Philipsen, on his birthday, took advantage of a perfect present in the shape of a lead-out, blowing the candles and the field away to win. With that success, Alpecin de Koning are now up and running. It was their first victory of the season. The French calendar continued with 2 one-day races that offered an alternative to the northern cobbles. And on Saturday in the Ardèche, it only happened again.
They've gone the wrong way and they've taken the wrong turn, and this has meant that it's opened things up for Romain Grégoire, who's sprinting for glory. What a disaster. What a way to end this classic here in the Faun Ardèche Classic. Romain Grégoire is going to run. Well, he shrugs his shoulders. He celebrates for the victory.
Now, that finish might well have left Filippo Ganna wondering why it was allowed to stand when his results the other week weren't. Aside from the win for the home team Groupama FDJ, another interesting takeaway was the 313 UCI points that was taken by XDS Astana. They took 3rd, 4th, 5th and 31st, believe it or not. That's more than you get for winning the race. You can argue about the fairness, the lack of it perhaps, but the strategy that's being employed by the team, try to avoid relegation rather desperately. It looked certain, didn't it, a few weeks ago? It seems to be a strong one. It's working. Their big rivals Cofidis took just 5 points from the same race, and they'll be one of a few teams now starting to look rather nervously over their shoulders. One team that most certainly isn't thinking about relegation is UAE Emirates. Their young talent, Juan Ayuso, put on a show at the second race, the Drome Classic. A 40-kilometre solo move had him channeling his inner Pog, the Spaniard winning for the first time this season, and impressively so. Stage racing this week took place in northwest Spain, albeit with a start in Portugal. Magnus Cort won on the outskirts of Porto to get O Gran Camiño underway, before repeating the feat like this on day 2, with the race back on home turf in Galicia.
Just look at this, look at the difference. There's no one who can live with him. It's Marnescourt going all the way to the line. Another long sprint, another victory, another great moment, and it's Marnescourt who's in control.
Court narrowly lost his race lead in a time trial won by Canadian Derek G. Stage 4 came down to a sprint of the non-sprinters. And though G couldn't beat the Guatemalan champion Sergio Chumil, he would have been more than happy with the increased yellow jersey gap he took as a result. The final stage to Santiago de Compostela began with Israel Premier Tech's G leading Davide Piganzoli by 37 seconds. It was another win for Court to round things off. 3 stages, a more than healthy return for the Dane, and full focus too on G as he finished safely to win a stage race GC for the first time, adding his name to a roll of honour that until now only included Grand Tour winners. That might give Canadian fans reason to be excited for the future. The opening weekend left us a heck of a lot to ponder, didn't it? So let's get some help from Matt Stephens and Jip van den Bos. They were speaking right after the Omloop.
Well, debrief time at Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. 2 fascinating races for completely different reasons. Let's stick with the men's first. Søren Werenskjold from Uno X, biggest win of his career, biggest win of the team's existence, I think it's fair to say. But quite an interesting race, a big field at the end there.
Yeah, true. I think it has to do something with the headwind in the final, where everything comes back together again after the Bosberg. And also because actually what I've heard in the interviews, most guys said it wasn't such a hard race. Maybe because of all the big and strong teams. It was very controlled, nothing too hard, nothing too explosive.
Next up then, the women's race. Where do we start?
It's
with the women's race.
It
First
was
off,
crazy.
What a win. The 2 riders that survived out in front, both have never won a bike race in their lives. But for Lotte Claes of Arkea, the biggest win of her career. The team were going crazy.
The biggest win of her career, and probably it will be the biggest win of her career. Of course, it's an amazing performance she did here today. She rode away from the start, stayed in the front the whole day. But we have to talk about what happened in the peloton.
What on earth was going on? We've both spoken to several riders independently, and it seems there was a distinct lack of communication.
Yeah.
I spoke to Alice Towers from Canyon SRAM, and she said that they only got information about the gap when it was about 10 minutes. She said it wasn't for them to ride, and her discussions in the bunch of SD Worx and FDJ, they decided not to ride as well. So clearly a bit of confusion and brinkmanship.
True, and I think also some a disagreement between the teams. Like FDJ wanted SD Worx to ride, SD Worx wanted FDJ to ride, and in the end, it ended up nobody was riding. So I feel like it's also like Vollering went to FDJ, Roosje went to Movistar. They're all looking to each other.
Definitely. I think there's a lot of politics going on behind the scenes. It does make it fascinating, though, for the rest of the year. But I think we're going to be talking about both of these races for a fair while yet.
Now, if you're watching in the UK, there's more analysis from the opening weekend, plus a build-up to next week's races with the Ultimate Cycling Show. That's Thursday evening, 10 p.m. on Quest. Adam and Orla this week joined by their special guest, Nathan van Hooijdonk. Now, the big races are coming thick and fast, aren't they? Strade Bianche is next up as our next weekend headliner. It's one that everybody wants to win. Here is a former winner himself, Tom Pidcock.
Pidcock has played it perfectly, ready to step onto the podium. In a modern classic, it's the next generation, led by Tom Pidcock.
I kind of knew this was the place to go. The freedom I'd get, the belief in me, the vision of where they want to go. I just knew this was the place, and also, you know, the story we can write and the satisfaction we can get from achieving from where we are. You know, there's a lot of teams that plug and play that, you know, were an option, but I think this is going to provide a better satisfaction for me, and also get back to, you know, what I enjoy, the basics. It's also a small team, stuff gets done quickly. Everyone can talk to everyone and they care about everyone the same way, which is really nice.
We're sharing it with the coaches, and they will see how it's best to share with you the relevant piece of information.
And of course, it's different now that we don't get the full calendar laid out in front of us like the World Tour teams, but I welcome a change, welcome a year out actually. I think the last 2 years were pretty tough there. So yeah, I don't mind taking a year out and then having that hunger come back, ready to come back and get this team into the race and meet back to it. I've had a really good winter. I mean, of course, no cyclocross, which is a big change. It's my first Christmas at home in 7 years or something, so It was nice. I've also had really consistent training, so I think I've prepared well, but you never know. Of course, this team is Molinos, but there's some super strong guys here. I've had the pleasure of getting to know them. It's been nice. They all work hard, so getting used to racing with them will be the next step.
You can see both men's and women's Strade Bianche this Saturday live on TNT Sports. On the breakaway, Orla, Adam and the gang will be along on Saturday morning. You'll also be able to see our mountain bike expert Josh Colson ride the white roads of Tuscany. Until then, enjoy the racing, and we'll be back next Monday with more Gruppetto. Goodbye.